Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today I'm honored to introduce Evan Poling, a former 68 Whiskey combat medic with the Ohio Army National Guard, where he served for 6 years. Evan's journey is one of personal transformation, growing up in a challenging environment, navigating through early failures, and finding purpose and success after service. Evan's path to entrepreneurship was shaped by his unique military experiences and the valuable lessons he learned along the way. From overcoming fear and self-doubt to building a thriving business, Evan is here to share his insights that have helped him succeed. He's a firm believer in servant leadership, and today we'll explore his approach to business, how his faith drives him, and his mission to turn ideas like transforming waste into electricity into reality. Join us as we dive deep into Evan's story of resilience, innovation, and unwavering dedication to creating a better future. So let's give a warm welcome to the true embodiment of what it means to be a strategic veteran, Mr. Evan Poling. Brother, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, man. Let's just, like we always do, man, jump right in. Talk about where you grew up and what inspired you to join.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot like most veterans, there's always something going on in your life that makes you enlist, right? Because the normal person technically wouldn't. And my story is not any different, I think. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. I had two parents at a very young age. They divorced, grew up with a single mom. My brother handicapped since birth. And so a lot of attention going to him and a lot of expectation on me having to be okay to perform at school. And so there's a lot of pressure, just growing up in an environment like that. My father eventually got custody of my brother and I. Maybe I'm going a little too much in detail here, but
no, man, your story, your rules, brother.
Yeah, I guess so, right? So my father did get custody of my brother and I eventually, and that was a very abusive relationship, and so there's a lot of things, dealing with bullying at school, and having to be okay, not having your sole parent around, going through abuse, and just growing through some of those challenges at a young age. Small town USA, I think, there's like 2 or 3 major things that encourage a veteran to join. It's like escaping the small town USA, family struggles and drama, looking for new opportunity and adventure, right? Or maybe your family's just done it and it's just part of your legacy. So, a little bit of combination of all of those, because I do have family members that have been in the military. And so I would say that was really what propelled me into a life or at least a short life of service. So
it really shouldn't surprise me. You grew up in a small town in Ohio. I grew up in a small town in Indiana. I had younger parents who divorced when I was young. I was the oldest, so I was expected to grow up fast and be okay and help out. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned this. I can't relate to the having a handicapped sibling part, but I do understand what it is like to be the oldest sibling. And it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, I just read an article about how language with children growing up matters, and you shouldn't ever refer to your older children as the big kids, because it's putting them in this psychological place where now they have to be okay. It was really fascinating to kind of break that down and apply it to my own life and understand the kind of issues that I have. And our story even parallels even more. I eventually went to live with my dad when I was a teenager to get away from my mom, who wasn't the greatest mom. We have a relationship now. We've talked about all the things, but also don't agree with some of the ways that she parented growing up. And I'm sure that's kind of a similar story. And I just thought I'd share that with you, because it's always interesting to me when I bring new guests on to see how closely related our lives actually are and intertwined. It's just really, really interesting. What inspired you to join the Army in particular?
Well, I just want to clear the air for my mom there. I went to live with my father because he was the weekend dad. So he took us to all the fun things and then told lies about mom. So put us in the middle of this, vendetta. And
that's on me. I apologize.
No, it's okay. No, you're good. And so, we lived with him for a few years and found out that he was the bad parent. So then we ended up moving back in with mom. So, Mom, I love you. If you ever see this, I just want to let you know. What propelled me to be in the Army? I wanted opportunity. And I believe at the time, I think the Army was the largest branch of the military. I always had straight A's. So I was top 10 in my class. So I had really good grades. And I wanted opportunity. I didn't want to go to the military and kicking doors. I mean, I did want to go kicking doors, but I knew that long term that it might not have as much career advancement for me in the future.
I'm here to tell you it doesn't.
Okay, well, it was an assumption at the time, and so I wanted the opportunity. I know the ASVAB test would unlock a lot of different career choices in the Army specifically. And they needed medics at the time. So I said, hey, this can kind of translate to the civilian side when I get out. So, I just jumped in the Army. I didn't want to be a Marine. I didn't want to be called Chair Force. Definitely don't want to be called a seaman. So Army was the next thing,
Yeah, and then there's the one that we all forget about, the Coast Guard, which I think might be the best kept secret in the military.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you forget about the Coast Guard. Sorry, guys.
And I haven't even been able to get a Coast Guard guy to come on this show yet. I just haven't run into one yet. They're just so few and far between. But I'm with you, man. I didn't have straight A's, but also the Army, it was freedom of choice of job. Everybody else, when I joined, well, again, I tried to join the Air Force and the Navy because I wanted to fly, and they basically laughed me out of the foyer at the high school because I wear glasses. That's never going to happen, brother. But the Marine Corps, I was really attracted to the Marine Corps, the uniforms or some shit like that. Obviously, everybody, is captivated by that, and they do have the best uniforms, but it was freedom of choice to do my job. And even the Marine Corps at the time in 2002, I think, it would have been 2002. They wouldn't even guarantee that I could be an infantryman.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to the Army because at least over there I can know for sure I'm going to be an infantryman, even though I qualified for everything else, So how was training to be a medic? I have a special place in my heart, having been to war a lot and worked with some really good medics and some really not so good medics. And I always wonder, what is training like for you as far as basic AIT, and did you feel ready to take on that role in that capacity after getting done with AIT?
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent question. I don't think anyone ever feels ready to have the lives of a dying friend in their hands. That's something you just kind of hope that adrenaline carries you through it, and you remember your training. And so that's what they prepare you for. I mean, basic training is the same, I think, for every person in the military, but specifically for AIT, it was roughly 6 months or longer. And so I think the first 6 weeks was an accelerated EMT course, EMT B, I believe. You get nationally certified so you can work in an ambulance. So it's just like trauma medicine fundamentals. And then you learn the combat side. Things are blowing up. And so they have like, gunfire and you're crawling through mud, dragging people, simulations. We've done like live animal keeping, they were put down ethically and everything like that, but actual bleeding organisms, keeping them alive. So we've done some. I'm not supposed to tell you that, but we've done some of that stuff. And then like the high $1 million mannequins in the combat field, hospital scenario where you're keeping people alive, keeping them stabilized. You're monitoring them. So just a little bit of everything from combat, like where you stack up in the infantry line and where you're at, and you got to be a fighter first. You got to get everyone safe before you can, treat people. So, I think, we would do these drills day in and day out, like different scenarios. We would go out and we would have a test, like a mass casualty event, simulation, and we'd be graded constantly. And there was always just new things new situations and scenarios they would throw at us where we'd have to think quickly and get graded. We'd do evaluations. So, very like mentally, physically exhausting, but it was, I think, a great training, especially for 6 months, having zero medical.
Yeah. And that's really good to hear because, as an infantry guy myself, like I said, I've had some good medics and I've had some bad medics, and I'm sure there's been training changes along the way, particularly with 20 years of war and lessons learned, right? Like that's going to change. I don't know when you went to basic training or whatever, but I always wondered about that. Like you're taking a guy off the street and you're expecting him to save lives with no knowledge whatsoever. Like how do you jam that into such a short period of time? So it's great to hear that the training's awesome. I want to talk about some pivotal military moments that you had. And you mentioned Staff Sergeant Robinson. And I'd love for you to tell that story because this is kind of at the forefront of what's going on in aftercare for us veterans right now with burn pits and whatnot. So what was the significance of Sergeant Robinson and that event and all of that? And how did it affect you?
Yeah, so I was out of the military when that happened to him. But I think I was in his unit when he got deployed. So within my unit, like half of our unit got deployed and the other half stayed behind. And so it's kind of a weird dynamic. Staff Sergeant Robinson, he was like the model soldier. He was always, the PT scores were always high. He was always like super serious and dedicated with the military service. He's like the kind of soldier you wanted to be. And I think that's why the bill was pushed, like his example was used to push that legislation forward because people always thought so highly of him and just his dedication to service. So, I mean, he always gave you something to strive towards being like, I didn't even know about it until like after he had died and someone told me about it. And then I saw it on the State of the Union address when Biden, announced the legislation to help those veterans. I'm like, I know that guy, that was, I was in his unit. I was underneath him, so, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, he was just a great, great soldier. So
I can relate to that, man. Cause in my Afghanistan deployment, we had a squad leader who was that guy, right? Like just the yoked model soldier, ripped to shreds, fitness, everything. And 4 or 5 years after that deployment, just drops dead of a heart attack. Like have no idea why. I think it's all burn pit related. I won't mention any names because I don't know the full kind of story behind that, but I suspect that's what it was because we had a giant open burn pit that we all lived by. And, that's great. I'm curious because you were guard, how did you deal with the duality of basically living two lives? How do you balance the military and the civilian life? And, most of the guard guys I've had on here were blessed enough to get active reserve, whatever they call that, ACRC or whatever. They're basically active guard guys their whole career, and it just worked out for them that way. I think you might be the first that was kind of a traditional guard guy that had a civilian job as well, or doing your thing. So I'm curious, how was that experience, and what is kind of the duality of transitioning back and forth in that life?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. I joke, and it's probably not, but I kind of say I have these little mini transitions. I noticed for myself specifically right before drill, I would kind of get headaches. I would start being shorter with people. I would sit straighter in chairs, be more direct in my speech, So it's like this almost mental shift. Like I'm turning into a soldier because it's almost like a survival mechanism kicked in. It's like when drill comes, I need to be in the mindset to be a soldier. And if you don't make that transition soon and you go and drill and you're like sloppy potatoes, well, you're not going to look good for yourself, for your unit. And it just doesn't spell, it's not good. And so you're expected to live the military lifestyle for that weekend or 2 weeks of the year. And then on the opposite side, when you come back, well, you can't, talk direct to people, in the civilian world. You got to be a little bit more kind, and you can't, just tell people what to do.
Oh, yeah.
You can't, portray yourself, big broad shoulders. And, I had people say, you look cocky when you walk. I'm like, well, this is just the soldier stance. I have a good posture and stance, and so just things like that, you got to kind of retransition back into civilian life. And so,
Yeah, the hardest part is the being blunt with people. That's who I am. I'm a blunt guy, and I deal with it in, building my business now. It's like, I know that I am very much not for everybody, but I also know there is a large population of people out there that prefer my directness. So, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's talk about when it's time for you to get out, because that's where the meat and potatoes of this show comes in, is the transition itself. And again, having done so many of these with so many of you guys, there are transition issues even when you are in the Guard, right? Like you just alluded to the fact that you notice these changes in yourself preparing for a drill weekend and then having to dial that back, going back to the civilian life. But let's talk about, it's time to get out. You're no longer going to be a member of the National Guard or serve in the military. How are you dealing with the transition of losing that completely? Because it makes up such a large part of who we are, our identities, our purpose, all of that. That's the two most common. It's not even the most common. It's the two direct things that are affected by anybody who gets out of the military, is loss of identity and loss of purpose. That's a fact at this point. Like it's just true. It's how it goes. So did you experience that, first of all? And what kind of struggles came with that, if you did experience that?
I don't think I struggled with it as much as most members. Like I said, I've had to make those small transitions throughout the month. I was going to college at the time, so looking towards career and internships and things like that. I think I was kind of thinking about this though for maybe active duty people, right? And I want to say something very carefully, but military is kind of an easy life, even though your job might be hard. I know when someone first hears that, it might rile inside and get angry, but you know where you're going to eat. You don't have to worry about your physical health because you're forced to exercise. You don't have to worry about what you look like because everyone looks the same. You know where you're going to be, how you're going to get there. So there's a lot of decisions in your military career where you don't have to make them. They're kind of made for you. And in a way that makes life a little easier, because then there's no decision fatigue. If you go in a shopping center and you want to buy cereal, nowadays there's 50 flavors of cereal, and sometimes buying cereal can be tough. But if there's only one or two flavors of cereal, I mean, the choice is pretty easy. And I think transition also comes with like building this mindset, like I'm free, I can do whatever I want, and not really preparing and setting yourself up for success and post-military life. And so I went in the military with the intention that I was going to use it as a tool to mature. I knew that I had a struggle with authority. I knew that I wasn't disciplined. I knew that there's no way in heck I could pay for college. I was a 3.99 GPA student. I needed to do something with like college, or at least I thought I did. I needed to go. And so I planned years, like a decade ahead, like that this is what I was going to do. And I think, similarly, if someone's in active duty, if they're making those plans and preparations, then transition's easy. But if you're literally waiting until the last 3 months before you get out and you've not made any plans or preparations, then it's going to be rough.
Well, so first of all, there's so much to unpack there, and
Sorry.
I'm definitely grateful. No, that's great, man, because this is where the value's at. And so, the first thing that you said about being careful about how you say it, I agree with you 1,000%. You don't have to be a real adult when you're on active duty military, and that gets even more compounded when you deploy a lot, like I did. Like I never had to be an adult. Deployment life was so much easier than just being at home on active duty life, because now I don't have to worry about paying bills or what's for dinner or where I'm sleeping tonight or is the laundry done or did I get the dishes done? Did the dogs get let out? 99 million other things, right? By and large, when you're on active duty, you don't worry about healthcare. You don't have to schedule your own medical appointments. You just show up for sick call, right? And then they tell you where to be and when to be there. They schedule your dentist appointments for you. They schedule all your, I forget what it's called now before you deploy, but you know what I'm talking about. Like you don't have to be a real adult, which is problem number one. That compounds the loss of identity because now your whole identity is wrapped up in this when you're on active duty. So I like what you say about that. And now I'm really curious. You have, I guess, a higher level of self-awareness than most when they join the military. And I'm curious, did that come from having to grow up faster because of the situation at home? And have you always known that about yourself?
Yeah, I'm very self-aware. I think very transparent. Where I try to just let all my garbage out and then give people the permission to be real. And I think it just comes from just just knowing life's too small, man. You just gotta live life, be genuine, be real. But yeah, I mean, like I said, just being kind of like the man of the house to dealing with abuse and survival and trying to eat and not get beat up or so kind of this self-awareness, being made fun of at school. How can I fit in socially? How can I excel? Just all these different trials and tribulations that have kind of built
and I think it's great, like good for you that, not good for you that you had to grow up that way, but good for you that it lended itself well to preparing you for adult life and in the self-awareness aspect. I didn't have that. I was very not self-aware. I bought in hook, line, and sinker to all of the societal distractions. Those people who weren't treating me right told me I wasn't ever going to make anything of myself. I bought into that all hook, line, and sinker. I didn't have the self-awareness that you're talking about. And I think because you had that level of self-awareness, knowing that you're using the military as a tool, it's not the be all end all, it's not who you are. I think that really helps, because that was the last point you made was, if you approach the military from that standpoint, the day you go in, you should be preparing to get out, and you should use your whole entire career to develop those skills that we're already going to develop through service anyway, to prepare yourself to get out. You should always have that plan. And that is the message that I push forward now today, because I know better, right? But at the time I didn't know better. So I think it's awesome that you already knew that about yourself. So, and I'm also glad to hear that is the key to helping us transition better, because let's be honest, the transition process is it's a really dark place for a lot of us. I know you don't have that experience or all of that experience, but it really is. So now I'm curious, where does entrepreneurship come in the picture for you, and when did you know that a traditional civilian job is not for Evan Poling? Evan Poling is a businessman, wants to control his time and his money and not have a boss.
Oh man, do we have 10 hours or?
Yeah, we could go as long as you want. We can split this up into multiple parts. I think this is the important stuff, because like I said, I created this show with the idea that, what did I need when I was in that dark spot? And I think hearing conversations like this, whether your transition was rough or not, I'm sure there was some struggle in that transition, but you have given an example of how you can prepare for that transition. Somebody's going to see this and relate to that. And you're going to be an inspiration because of what you're doing now and the other side. So take as long as you need to explain it, because this is the fun part, right? Like, why are you an entrepreneur? Why does it resonate with you so much? What inspires you about it? What gets you out of bed every morning about it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a loaded question, because I think I view the world a little differently than people. I didn't live the typical life. I've been able to, and I have an element of faith too that kind of sets my view of the world a little differently. I think that, we're all designed and made with a purpose, and the pursuit of money or financial freedom will only get so far before it leaves you hollow and empty, right? And so for me, it's about adding value to others. That's a huge driving factor. And knowing that I could go through anything and struggle through anything just means that no matter what happens, whether I succeed or fail, that I will be okay. And so I don't have to worry about financial freedom. I don't have to worry about, I think, some of these things that other entrepreneurs strive for. I think that's a huge element to it. And then seeing the world differently. So I'm very quick to say that's dumb and we need to do it a different way. And that has gotten me in a lot of trouble. But I have a skeptical mind on some things, and skepticism not in as like a critique, demoralizing, demeaning type way, but how can we add more value and do something differently in a way that makes sense?
Approach with caution kind of mindset, right?
Yeah. So how do I transition to my entrepreneurial journey? So I was working in a factory in college when I had my GI Bill. I was going to college. I was doing drill. I was doing all that. And I knew I wanted to be in business. So to kind of rewind a little bit, my father was a entrepreneur, and he had a lot of businesses where he would start them up. They would do really well. And then he had some successes and some big failures, a lot of different companies and stuff. And so, here was 12-year-old Evan seeing this, being a part of it, seeing these businesses fail. And I was really interested and intrigued in what he was doing. And so I think that got me primed for my desire to want to be an entrepreneur. So there's that element as well. So going back to my factory thing, I'm working in the factory part-time. I'm a black belt instructor. I'm, doing National Guard stuff. I'm getting my double major in college. So I got accounting and financial economics double major. And,
because accounting wasn't hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I made this before I chose my majors, but it was actually, I was thinking about life, not going to college and everything like that. I don't know why, but I wanted like a $4 an hour pay raise to match my colleague across the factory. But he had a business degree. So I was making $12 an hour. He was making $16 an hour. And then I realized that his business degree was barely it didn't really gain him anything. I was doing the math in my head and I was like, wow, he got ripped off. He's working in the same factory that I'm working at. I'm a kid, to be fair, the minimum wage was like $8 an hour. So, I wasn't it was an okay wage, right?
It's different times, folks, different times.
Yeah, different times.
Gas was right at $1 a gallon then. And, things looked a lot different across the country.
I think the minimum wage equivalency is very important, right? So you can imagine. Suffice I got paid a quarter, then relevance is important.
Yeah.
And so I realized I needed to specialize. So specializing, going through college, and I started doing all these so I was so busy that I didn't have enough time to do an internship. And so then all the businesses wanted experience in order to get experience. And so this was 2000. I graduated in 2000. Gosh, was it 2013? 2013 from college. So that was shortly right after 2008, 2012, all that garbage. The market was down, so it was a really tough time. So I started doing contract work, and I ended up in financial crimes as a financial crimes investigator. I did a contract job where I was a financial analyst for a chicken finger place called Raising Cane's. All the franchises in Ohio. I found 2 locations that were embezzling like $80,000 of money, and there was like 14 arrests across all these locations. There's like these like embezzlement rings, and that landed me into financial crimes with my financial background. And so I was doing investigations on businesses and people, looking into their bank accounts without their knowledge. So looking for like terrorist financing, anti-money laundering, human trafficking, all these like illicit things. And so really got to dig into the hidden financials of business accounts, and of people's personal accounts. And I had to understand the industry in order to write a report if their activity was legitimate or not. And so I had to understand business really well. I had to really dig in and, this person, this is kind of shady. Why are they sending wires to Mexico? That has nothing to do with their business, this kind of thing. And so a very investigative mind, and, did that in multiple different facets over 10 years. And so, and then I got let go. And so
They just let you go.
yeah, I did multiple, I probably did 5 different financial institutions. I had different jobs. I'm one of those guys that if you don't challenge me and you don't promote me, then I jump ship and go somewhere else until I prove myself. Oh, you don't value me, I'll go somewhere else. So I kept doing that to work my way up. And then my most recent job, I helped cross train a bunch of my, so I had like a team of 9. I was able to cross train people to where I was able to give up 160 hours a week of my team to other teams. And I was only working like 5 hours a week. And so they're like, well, we don't have no work any for you. So we're going to give pretty much your role to the team lead. And, we need to use your money to hire on other teams. And so got let go. And
you forced yourself out pretty much.
Yeah.
Build a better mousetrap, and it doesn't always pay off in corporate America, folks. Just walking example right here. And I assume that's where the business comes in.
Yeah. And so my wife's in the medical field. We were wanting to buy a business for her. I've been watching all these YouTube people who buy a business and all this stuff. So we went down this road, and it was a really, I like to say dumb process, working with business brokers and just how slow it was. And so I built a business called BizRetire, and it does things completely different when it comes to buying and selling businesses. And so I took something I thought was stupid and said, okay, we're going to do it a different way. So yeah, it's very high level overview.
Well, let's get into the macro level overview of what BizRetire does and how you do it better. I'm familiar with Biz Buy Sell, Empire Flippers. I also have not paid them any money to go actually poke around and explore the opportunities in there. I check them every now and again and get a kind of a bug up my ass to want to maybe buy a business. But, also franchises I've stayed away from. I have no interest in owning a franchise. However, I have partnered with people who do the franchise thing so that veterans have resources inside my community to go purchase franchises. So let's get the breakdown of your business, because this is something I see a huge need for. I think the knowledge, particularly as the boomer generation is starting to, for lack of better terms, die off and retire. There are so many. I love Cody Sanchez and boring businesses. There's so many boring businesses out there that are going to be for sale. And I think now is an absolute perfect time to be looking at buying a business if that's what you're into, because there's a ton of money to be made. And with things like AI automation and all of that, you can actually scale those businesses even further now. So let's dive right into, BizRetire and what that looks like and how you're doing it better. And if it takes 10 hours, brother, it takes 10 hours, because this is what we're here for.
Okay. Yeah. So we got to understand the traditional way of buying and selling business for those of your audience who don't understand it. So, 300-400 years ago, you had this person called a business broker, for lack of a better term. Maybe they weren't called that back then. But essentially, when you didn't have internet, you didn't have, perfect information, you needed someone who knew how to sell your business, how to draw up the legal contracts, how to guide you through that process. Because most business owners only sell one business, right? And so back in the day, they would have a list of buyers. They buy the buyers and they connect the buyers to the seller. They negotiate on behalf of the seller to try to get better terms. They weed out buyers that are going to waste time for the seller, and they try to act as a middleman to protect the seller. And that's, like I said, it's been around for 300 or 400 years. And the way that some of these businesses operate, like Biz Buy Sell, last time I understood it, 90% of the businesses listed on Biz Buy Sell are listed by a business broker. Only like 10% of them are actually listed by the owner. So when you go to try to buy a business, you have to talk to the business broker. Business broker sends you back a non-disclosure agreement, which says you can't tell anybody what you learn. You can't use it to compete against them to protect the business owner. And then you send it back to them. And then they send you kind of this like fact sheet. And then you send them questions. And then they go to the business owner. And the owner replies back to the business broker. And the business broker replies back to you. And so as you can imagine, this process is very slow and it takes a long amount of time. And then you have Biz Buy Sell, which has, they say we have the most buyers of any platform. Well, sounds great, but when you can create a free account and you list your business on there and it's a good business, you're going to get like 3,000 emails. And if you're a business owner, like you don't got time to sift through 3,000 emails. Like you can't take those calls, and you don't want your email box blown up. And so
Especially
this is kind
because
of
2,990 of them are going to be tire kickers.
Yeah, tire kickers. They're going to waste your time. And so this is a real problem. And to even top it all off, business brokers only actually sell 20% of the businesses they ever list. So their success rate is horrible. So like this is a major issue in this industry, in this marketplace. And so with the availability of information, with people can buy courses. I mean, I be careful, but there might be some great courses out there. You can hire, you can buy documents, you can learn how to buy a business, you can learn how to sell a business, right, without this intermediary. And even if you do hire a business broker, you still got to hire a lawyer, you still got to hire an accountant, you still have to hire these consultation firms. The business broker is only literally going to slap your business on their website for people to see. They're going to slap it on a central website like BizBuySell. And that's it. And then you're going to pay them 10 to 20% of your whole entire business to do this. If you have $1 million business, you're going to pay the business broker $200,000. Like that seems asinine to me. So again, when I see something that's dumb, I'm like, this is kind of dumb, right? And so
to be a middleman, because they're really not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
they might do something,
steps.
but I don't know what it is. Yeah,
they're adding steps, like just gatekeeping, really.
And to be fair, so if you're a business owner, you're hearing this and you're hard to deal with and no one likes you, hire a business broker, because no one's going to buy your business if you're a jerk. So you're going to need a business broker to do the negotiation for you. But if you're a decent human being, I don't think a business broker is good for you. They do add that service where they will be an intermediary. But I think that's the only thing that I can see, like where you really would need a business broker, is if you're just a
dick,
horrible human being, hard to deal with. I digress.
Right.
So what I do differently is eventually I want to move to the point where, so let's go to the buyer. The buyer, in order to find a business, they have to go through BizBuySell. And I've looked on BizBuySell. The good buyers are buying the good businesses before you even see them. They know what they're looking for. They find them quick. They have a lot of money. They move quick. And so it leaves kind of like the you and the me, the small guys, we're really not going to have, we're going to find mediocre businesses at best, right? So you kind of have the leftovers.
Yeah. And part of the problem, at least my problem with BizBuySell is, yes, you can create a free account, but you don't get access to information that you need unless you pay for the account. And so I can't just get in there and poke around to look for good businesses because I'm not presented with all the information, right? Like that's one of the problems that I see with BizBuySell. Am I wrong in thinking that?
I think you can send like a little message to the broker, and then the broker can contact you back on the listing.
Okay.
But
I haven't put,
like you said, you don't have the information right then and there. So you literally have to like send out all these fillers to brokers for them to send the non-disclosures, and then they send the financial packets over to you to see.
And then it's too late. Somebody else has scooped up what you were already looking for.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Right. And so, so the way that BizRetire is different. For the buyer's perspective. So yeah. And it's hard. So if you want to find off-market leads, something that a biz broker hasn't touched, you got to like cold call 1,000 people, like to find maybe one or two good businesses, and you may or may not land those businesses. And so, I mean, are you willing to spend 1,000 hours calling strangers and then spend, $1,000 to buy data from a data warehouse, and then half those numbers are disconnected? I mean, that's what I've been doing to try to get listings on my site, right? It's one of the things that I've been doing. It's a lot of work, right? And a lot of time. It's like, what's your time worth to you? If you make $15 an hour and it's going to take you 100 hours, well, that's $1,500 that you have to spend to find those off-market leads. And so the idea of BizRetire is eventually, right now it's cheaper to list on BizRetire than BizBuySell, but eventually maybe even free. And so the difference is the buyers have to pay to see the listings at all. So it kind of gatekeeps the people who are just the tire kickers. But there are no brokers allowed on my site. There's no commissions. I'm not involved in the sale, discussions, negotiations, nothing. The buyers or the sellers list their listing on there, and the listings are not public. So again, you got to pay to see them. So you can't find in a search engine. Their employees are not going to find out that you're selling the business, all that stuff. And the buyers have to sign a non-disclosure. They have to check a box that says they agree to a non-disclosure agreement. And so BizRetire is providing the security that the broker would provide. It's providing autonomy. And then when the buyer's interested, they put in their information. The seller gets a text message, an email with the buyer's information, and that's it. The seller can decide to call them or not. The buyer never gets the seller's information at all. And so it really values the seller over everything. And it's off-market leads. So these listings are typically never anywhere else. They're not listed by a broker. And so it's just direct between the buyer and the seller. And so kind of cuts out all the middleman, all the craziness, and it's supposed to simplify the process.
Dude, this is genius because you make money by the buyers paying to use your site to get access to off-market deals they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. And the tire kickers are not going to kick tires because they got to pay to do it. They're like, well, I'm not that serious, so I'm not going to pay. I mean, the price is a lot of money, like for the buyers. Like it's like $150 a month. I mean, it's not cheap. And I made it that way on purpose because I don't want people that are not actually ready to buy a business to go in there. I don't want them wasting the seller's time.
I think that's actually a really great price point because as someone who is eventually interested in buying a business, I would pay $150 for 1 month to do some due diligence, right? When I'm ready to be looking to buy a business, it costs me $150 to get access to off-market deals that I know are going to be competitive, but not nearly as competitive as something like Empire Flippers or Biz Buy Sell, right? Like I think you got like a 1 in a million shot at getting whatever you want on Biz Buy Sell, unless you just have ridiculous loads of money and you can just go, immediately put cash down on one or whatever. So I think it's a fair price point. I think it's like you said, mitigating all the tire kickers. It's protecting the sellers. It's cutting out the brokers, simplifying the process. But I mean, even for me, like $150 investment for me to get on your site and go see what's available out there, even if I don't buy this month, maybe I decide we need to wait another 90 days. I would pay another $150 just to have access to it. So I think that's genius, man.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, all the accounts are free on my platform. So the buyers can go in and see the amount of listings I have, but everything is like grayed out except for I think it's revenue and cash flow. And that's the only two things that I put on there. And so you're like, okay, this is $1 million business a year. They make $300K profit. And so that's kind of like, and then if you're a buyer, like, okay, well, he's only got 2 listings. Well, I don't want to pay $150 a month. Or as a buyer, like, oh, he has 1,000 listings, then yeah, I'll pay the $150. And so it gives the buyer some option to, choose when they want to pay as well. And, think of the seller, they're not paying $50,000, $100,000 to list their business anymore. Right.
Yeah, they're paying nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I got a 90-day free trial. Right. So it's like, I mean, right now I'm just trying to build up that inventory because finding off-market deals has been extremely hard because and I've not advertised to buyers once ever. And I have like 30 times more buyers than sellers. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why people are monetizing on the seller side when they should be monetizing on the buyer side. It just doesn't make sense to me, but that's
Hey, again, that's why that's your UVP right there. That's your differentiator for your business. I love it. Remind me when we get done recording offline, I have some ideas for how you can get some more leads, I think.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
Definitely love to share those with you. I also like that you give enough information for me to see what the profit margin is, because that's also, as a buyer, going to prompt me, oh, this is juicy. Let me go ahead and pay that $150 to see what this is about. Because the example you gave, $1 million business bringing in 300,000, that's 30% margin. That's a successful business, right? Anything over 20% is great. So, and then it's getting into all the fixed costs, the FF&E, all that good stuff, right? That's everything that's behind the scenes that they're paying for access to, right?
Well, awesome. So the way it works is the business owner puts that information in, and I want to be as hands off in this. I don't verify any of that. Like, I'm so out of this process. I'm literally just a listing site, and I want the buyer and the seller to do what they do best, is buy and sell. I have no control, no input, nothing. So it really
you're the Zillow of businesses.
I'm
kind of.
trying to be. I want to be. Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
And all of this just because you were looking to buy a business for your wife and you were like, this process is absolutely ridiculous. I don't want to deal with this. Let me create my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that process like for you, and what challenges did you face when setting this whole system up? Because I know it wasn't without its challenges. I know it wasn't without its, man, I want to quit moments, right?
yeah. Man, it's evolved so much. I mean, it's a year in the making. Currently, it started out as like I asked myself like, what's important for business owners, and a lot of times the hardest obstacle to selling is their legacy. So I wanted BizRetire to be kind of the pseudo. So you can see kind of like a YouTube set up here. So I wanted BizRetire to be an interview with business owner talking about their legacy and their sales pitch, why someone should buy their business, and keeping their identity, secret, and then creating this YouTube video where, you put it out in the public, and then you have a way for potential buyers to contact that seller. And so then, when their grandkids, when they pass away, the grandkids could see the legacy of their grandparent. And it's also like a legacy slash like, advertising to sell the business. So I kind of, that's what it started out as. And then I kind of thought about, well, half the people didn't want their face on the internet. They don't want to talk about, how much their business was worth because they're afraid of like, fraud and scams. And so I hit some real roadblocks on that front. And then it kind of evolved into like a consultancy business where I'd come in and help do exit planning and get your books ready and, get it maybe operated by an operator so that they could collect a paycheck or get it ready for market. And that didn't really work out. And so then it's like, how can I add the most value with doing the least amount of work that has the biggest impact? And then so I started looking at the market as a whole. And I'm like, well, why would anybody ever use a business broker? And so I had to say, okay, well, these are the benefits to the business broker. This is what they add. Okay, why would anybody want to use my site to buy versus biz buy sell? Okay, these are the downsides of biz buy sell. And so I just said, okay, how can I add the value of the business broker and not have any of the downsides of biz buy sell? And how can I conglomerate all these great ideas into one place that is superior to everything out there? And then through process elimination, but it didn't start out that way. There was an evolution of this thing that took time, and it's been a year. And it's still not as still. And to be honest, it's still not profitable yet. And so, 90% of startups fail. And, I just got back from a 1-month vacation in Europe. My wife got that from work. And so now I'm hitting the ground running and I'm making some strides now, but it's tough, man. It's brutal.
Dude. It's the story of how to build a business. Take some action, iterate, feedback, implement feedback, try the next thing, and eventually you get to where you're at. I'm also not profitable, so that's great, right? Like that's part of it. I think you'll be profitable very soon. Just in that, the way I see your business, it benefits everybody, not just the seller, but the buyer. You're not involved in it. You're really just creating the platform for them to get away from, honestly, like you said, if it doesn't make sense for you to have a broker, why the hell are we still buying businesses using brokers? Like, I don't need a broker. You don't need a broker. We can have a decent human conversation. I'm interested in buying your business. You're interested in selling me your business. Let's just have the conversation without the middleman, right? Like, let's not waste each other's time. And I definitely think that there's some huge value in that, in the space that you're creating. I've never heard of anything like this. And then just your approach to, why is everybody trying to monetize the seller? Let's monetize the buyer. Like, yeah, let's monetize the buyer. They clearly have money because they want to buy a business. What's a little bit extra on top of that, to eliminate a headache of like what you went through with trying to buy the business for your wife?
Yeah. I mean, and there's more demand to buy a business than there is supply of businesses. and I know we talk about this like wave, like tsunami wave, where all these businesses, but a lot of those go to children. A lot of those go to second in command employees. A lot of these are just too unprofitable to even run or operate. Right. A lot of times people die and they're left to kids and estates that they can't operate them, and so they collapse. So there's a lot less of them than the market would have you believe that are out there, right? And so, or at least I think that's what I'm seeing. Like I said, I've not advertised to any buyer ever. All my ads have been specific to seller, and I've got like 15, 20, 30 times more buyers than sellers. And so if that doesn't say something, then I don't know what does. So I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else, but
don't feel bad. It happens. It happens to me more than I'd like to admit. We've got about 30 episodes published that prove that. I'll be having a conversation with somebody and I'll just middle of a rant and lose my thought. So TBI brain, I guess. Dude, as we wrap up here, man, like, what would you say has been the greatest lesson you've learned from all of everything, your military career, the way you grew up to building the business and where you're currently at today?
Wow. I think for veterans, because that's the audience that I'm speaking to first and foremost, it's not every veteran is going to become an entrepreneur. I think I was thinking about this. I went to counseling a few years ago, and he said something profound to me. He said that a lot of times so for me, it was childhood trauma. We dealt with those issues from the mindset of a child. But as we kind of go into adulthood, we kind of put those aside. We don't think about that anymore. And we haven't had an opportunity to look at those issues again from the mindset of an adult and ask why we do the things we do, how they impact us, and how we can change our thoughts around those things that will give us freedom from anger, from depression, from turmoil to anxiety, whatever it is. Because we can reframe the way we think, the way we respond. And we have habits, things we did to cope for those things that we still let have agency in our lives. And so really, I would say take a hard look, especially to veterans. There's something lingering that you just need to deal with it and have help and reframe your mindset, because I think that will give you freedom in ways that you can't even imagine. I mean, this could be even losing a buddy in a combat zone. I mean, this is from anything, right? And so I think it's very valuable. There should be no stigma in your mind to do that. That's the hard work that needs to be done to make you whole. So get out there and do it.
And I'm going to sum that up in one word, because it's one of the skills that's mindfulness 101 right there. Understanding a lot of what we deal with as adults are rooted in childhood trauma, whether we choose to believe that or not. It's very true for me. And you adding to that, looking at that from a child's mind and then burying that, running away from it, compartmentalizing it, whatever that looks like, and not taking the time as adults to address it. That's the definition of mindfulness and being mindful. So that's a great lesson that you've learned. And I'm so glad that you shared it with us. What's the one thing that you want the audience, the veterans listening to this, and anybody else who's listening to this for that matter, because the things we talk about on the show don't only apply to veterans, they apply to everybody. We're just targeting the veteran community because we're a part of it. And we need all the help we can get. But what do you hope they take away from our conversation today, if anything?
Well, maybe something I haven't said that I'd probably like to say is that, be mindful of what you're pursuing after. I think wrong motivations, it could be you're trying to prove something to somebody. You're trying to use anger as jet fuel to propel you in the future. It's that financial freedom or that dream of something else. These things can be okay in temporary settings, but ultimately they will fail you and leave you vulnerable and misliked, or into a jail cell because you're committing fraud to prove something to somebody. I think if you don't have faith, you don't have purpose. And every dollar you earn is a certificate of the society voting that you've added value to that society. And so you have to start looking at what you do as how much value are you adding into the world, and focus on that. How much are you giving to the world? Because I think eventually the society will start voting for you in their certificates of service, which is money. It's a thing that comes, but it's not the thing you should pursue. And so I would say, just be mindful of what motivates you.
Dude, so powerful. I say the same thing all the time. The minute you stop working with the motivation being more money and the motivation being helping people, the more money that starts to come your way. And the way you just framed that as a certificate of approval from society that you're doing it right, that's such a great way to look at that. And I really appreciate your perspective on that, because we see it the same way. Dude, how can people find you through social media if they want to reach out and have a conversation with you, if they have a business that they want to sell, if they just want to learn more about what you do and how to get involved with helping you do what you do, or if they want to obviously check out your website?
Yeah, no, my biggest platform is LinkedIn. Connect to me there. It's Evan Poling, Poling. You can connect with me via email. Well, maybe I won't give out my email just yet, but I'd say LinkedIn is the number one way to get a hold of me. And then my website is BizRetire.com. So BizRetire.com. And so we have a contact form there. You can contact me, and that goes directly to my email, so I can reach out to you that way. But I would say those are the best way to get a hold of me. So
I love it, man. Dude, Evan, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and all of your journey with us. Means the world to me. Super grateful for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Evan Poling, please don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, download this episode, share it with everybody that you can, so we can hopefully accomplish my goal of getting in front of 1 million veterans by the time I turn 40 next May. Until next week, have a great week, and we'll see you next week with another heater of an episode. Take care, everybody. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at the Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.